I have zero use for Taylor Lorenz. I know you feel the same, but her behavior is indicative of so many larger societal awful things that are happening that it's thrilling to talk about it. It's thrilling to see it all embodied in one person's terrible behavior. That's what excites me about the story. The powerful, the elite, the snobs taking aim at the not downtrodden, but certainly not as famous, not as big a platform, people of America to try to ruin their lives. And then when there's any tiny bit of backlash, they play the victim. They claim, to be harassed, to have one's picture posted. Meanwhile, that's exactly what she does for a living. What do you make of Taylor Lorenz?
Yeah, there's so much going on here, which is why this story merits attention. If it were just one kind of aberrational, clearly unwell reporter who alienated a lot of her colleagues at the New York Times when she was there and especially when she left, and is controversial even within the media, it wouldn't really be worth paying that much attention to one reporter, even though she's a very influential and powerful reporter. After all, her stories appear on the front page of the two of the most powerful newspapers in the West, first the New York Times, now the Washington Post. She currently works at a newspaper owned by the richest or second richest man in the world, depending on how you count, Jeff Bezos. Mm-hmm. So she wields a lot of power and a lot of influence. But if it were just her standing alone as this kind of exception, you would maybe pay some attention to it, but nowhere near enough. The reason why it's worthy of the attention it's getting is in part because of what you said, that she is a somewhat extreme, but nonetheless extremely illustrative expression of the prevailing values in the liberal wing of the corporate media. She's over the top with it. She's very melodramatic. She's very narcissistic and self-centered, but it still provides a very vivid window into how they actually think. And it's especially true because you see that when she does things like this, it doesn't receive any criticism from mainstream media figures. They close ranks. They support her. She was widely cheered by all of or many of the employees of the liberal digital outlets, of the Washington Post, of CNN. The Washington Post issued a statement heralding her as a great and competent journalist. So what she's doing is something that the dominant wing of the media approves of, which is why it's worth discussing, because in this approval, you see this important shift that took place, in my view, with the emergence of Donald Trump, first as a candidate and then as a president. Traditionally, I'm not saying it was perfect, but the model to which journalists aspired was captured by phrases like speak truth to power or afflict the powerful and comfort the powerless. The idea was the most heroic journalism were things like the Pentagon Papers or Watergate or exposing the secrets of the CIA, the NSA. That's what won Pulitzers when you confronted actual power centers, exposed how billionaires hide their assets. But what happened in the Trump era was they decided that these power centers, the CIA, the Pentagon, the kind of U.S. security state, Wall Street and Silicon Valley billionaires weren't their adversaries any longer. They were their allies. They were the ones who were feeding them Russiagate leaks, plotting against Trump, pouring huge amounts of money into the Democratic Party. They didn't want to investigate those power centers any longer. They were aligned with them. And they decided instead that the real threat to the United States was not just Donald Trump, but the movement behind him, which meant that any citizen, no matter how private, no matter how powerless, no matter how obscure, who expressed conservative views or some kind of a sympathy with the MAGA movement became an enemy, a valid target of journalistic scrutiny. And it wasn't just in this case where they unmasked a person whose politics they didn't like. They've been doing it repeatedly. CNN has done it. The Daily Beast has done it. The Intercept, the outlet that I shamefully co-founded and then proudly left, has done it many times. There's an ethos in the modern day iteration of corporate journalism that the true enemies are not government institutions or centers of financial power, but instead ordinary individual citizens who should have journalistic scrutiny and punishment if they have the wrong ideology, by which it means a rejection of liberal orthodoxy.
So just for background for the audience, Taylor Lorenz, she was called a tech reporter when she was at the New York Times. Now I think they say she's like the online reporter. I don't know. Tiana Lowe of the Washington
I think they call her a
Examiner.
columnist now.
Okay.
At the Washington Post, yeah.
Tiana Lowe of the Washington Examiner did a great piece on her earlier in March. And the headline of her piece was, Taylor Lorenz did this to herself. This is after she was crying in her soup about how mean the internet is to her. And she gave a bunch of great examples of how this woman Taylor Lorenz has made her career. And one of the examples was the Oshry sisters. They were apparently very popular on Instagram under the account Girl with No Job. It was like a couple of sisters on there talking about their lives, and one was talking about food, and one was more about fashion, and one was about life, and so on. And it looks like a couple of them were mildly political, but not, just occasionally, and the other two weren't at all. And the ones who were a little political were Trump supporters. They sounded pro-Trump. That's where they went wrong. That's clearly where they ran afoul of Taylor Lorenz. So she did a piece on them she was writing for the Daily Beast, outraged that these girls never had the guts to admit that their mother is Pam Geller. Pam Geller is a right-wing media figure, sort of. She's the one who hosted the Draw Muhammad contest down in Texas to try to make a point about free speech. And that did turn potentially criminal, where two guys got arrested who were going to attack the event. Anyway, she was trying to make a point about free speech. These girls, their sin, the reason they had to be outed and no longer allowed to remain anonymous was because that was their mom. And unlike most 20-year-olds, I guess they didn't want their mom all over their Instaplan page, and they didn't want to continue touting their mom and showing pictures with their mom. And you could give them credit for not, sort of riding on her coattails, because she's very well known and liked by some in the Republican Party. But to Lorenz, this was disgusting. So she does a long piece outing them. And the most famous girl got fired. She lost a piece that was like, she lost her talent agency after her show was canceled. So she suffered consequences as a result of this Taylor Lorenz hit piece. And then she tweets out, I guess, I don't know what happened, but one of the girls tweeted out that Taylor Lorenz shouldn't do this. And Lorenz plays the victim even then. Disappointing to see Girl with No Job, a racist influencer who doxed my entire family. Here she goes again. Threatened me and harassed me out of my apartment and never once apologized for her racist Islamophobic tweets and posts. Getting paid by Samsung now. This is later when she got an advertiser on her new venture. And then she goes on to talk about how it's truly horrible the way she incited and encouraged her fans to attack me. She's never once expressed remorse. You were the aggressor, Taylor. You were the aggressor. This girl denies doxing Taylor at all in any way. But the reason I go through that long example, Glenn, is because, as you will now walk us through, it is the beginnings of what would be a pattern for this so-called Washington Post reporter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, she got to the New York Times. You don't get to the New York Times randomly. You get to the New York Times by demonstrating that the work you're doing will be popular with their readers or otherwise in alignment with their journalistic values. And if you look at what she did in the 2 or 3 years or more to build up her online platform, she wasn't a trained journalist, but she developed a body of work that became influential and controversial and polarizing and well-liked in some circles. It was almost exclusively doing the kind of thing that you just described. She would target teenagers who were popular on TikTok and would dig into their tweet history when they were 14 and 15 and find so-called problematic tweets and try and ruin their reputation. I'm talking about like 18 and 19-year-old kids. She would like lurk outside of teenage influencers' homes. They would live together in homes like 18 and 19-year-olds, and at the age of her age is unknown. She gives very conflicting accounts about it because she likes to create this perception that she's extremely young. If you criticize her, they'll say, "Oh, why are you attacking this young woman who just entered journalism as though she's like 20 when in fact she's in her mid-30s?" She kind of developed a specialty for like lurking outside of teenage online culture and unmasking and uncovering their past. I mean, you're talking about researching the tweet history of teenagers. Like, it doesn't get more bottom of the barrel than that, in my opinion, from the perspective of what journalism is supposed to be. And in the case of, the daughters of Pam Geller, I am most definitely not a fan of Pam Geller. She's even controversial in large sectors of the right. I do think she's often veered into what I regard as anti-Muslim animus. I think her devotion to the state of Israel is often way too extreme and blind, and she's willing to call people anti-Semites if you even criticize Israel. Oh, there's a lot I don't like about Pam Keller. But what does it have to do with their daughters?
Right.
I mean, I think it's a kind of like a foundational view of our culture that we're not an aristocracy, that you're not held to the sins or the accomplishments of your parents. I mean, I wouldn't want to be held to the political views of my father, with whom I have all kinds, and I wouldn't want my kids held responsible for my views either.
Same.
So of course, Pam Geller's daughters have the right to use their father's name and to not, quote unquote, admit who their mother is or what their opinion of, and also, even if they did have differences with their mother, what kind of sociopathic mindset would demand that they come out and publicly denounce their own mother?
Right.
So this is the sort of thing that she built her entire career on, Megyn, as you know, is targeting people without power, dragging their private lives and their secrets into the public limelight in order to ruin their reputation, in order to generate hatred for them. And every time it happens, somehow, not just Taylor, but all of her colleagues in the media take her, a woman who grew up in extreme wealth in Greenwich, Connecticut, who was educated in Swiss boarding schools, who went to a very expensive liberal private arts college, and now writes for, as I said, the front pages of the two most powerful newspapers, and somehow demands that we treat her as the victim, not the people whose lives she's ruining, who don't have any influence or power or not much compared to her. But even if you criticize Taylor Lorenz, if you just criticize Taylor Lorenz, you get accused of stimulating hatred against her. In fact, when she was on MSNBC sobbing, it was about a study that was supposedly done that accused myself and Tucker Carlson of being responsible for the hatred and misogynistic attacks and death threats that she gets, which I'm sure she does. Most people in public life do.
Hello.
Because when we criticize her, it stimulates that.
So are the high fuel costs putting a damper on your summer vacation plans? Starting to get a little worried? Many people are. From higher prices at the pump to a jump in airfare, it's getting more expensive to get away for a week. But what if you could soak up those vacation vibes year-round in your own backyard? Get yourself a Michael Phelps Swim Spa by Master Spas. Whether you want to stay close to home this summer or just want to extend your break, a Michael Phelps Swim Spa by Master Spas can transform your backyard into an oasis. It combines the benefits of a pool with the therapy of a hot tub. Michael Phelps Swim Spas by Master Spas have a water current so you can swim, you can do aquatic exercises, you can just have fun with your kids who will love it. The water buoyancy will relieve pressure on aching joints. It's a great way to exercise if you can't take high impact. Enjoy pure relaxation in the massage therapy suites of the Swim Spa. This will reinvent your family time. You're going to love it. Your family and friends will too. Michael Phelps Swim Spas by Master Spas come in a variety of sizes that will complement almost any yard, even if it's a teeny tiny one. And since it's heated, you can use it year-round in any climate. Think about doing the laps out there in the snowy winter months. Michael Phelps Swim Spas are 100% made in the USA by Master Spas, the world's largest swim spa manufacturer. Go to masterspas.com, put in the promo code MK to save $1,000 on a Michael Phelps Swim Spa or $500 on a Master Spas hot tub. Masterspas.com, promo code MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.